Hey guys, Alex from 7th Hour Films back again with Sailor Moon. Last time, in our review of Sailor Moon, we covered the first 14 chapters of the manga, which was the Dark Kingdom arc. And overall, it was very interesting. I liked most of the characters. Mainly, I liked all the Sailor Scouts, and I did like our big bad guys being Queen Beryl and Queen Metallica. However, the ites were less than satisfactory, I suppose we could say. And we also had the useless elephant in the room, which was Mamoru Chiba, also known as Tuxedo Mask. This time around, we are going to be covering chapters 15 to 26. This is the Black Moon arc of the Sailor Moon manga. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into it. Once again, we are going to be going on specific, concise notes. We're not going to be going over each chapter individually. So let's go ahead and get started with the first thing that I want to talk about, the plot of this one. Okay, so this is... How can I put this in a way that doesn't sound really, really bad? This is more or less identical to the Dark Kingdom arc in terms of plot, with some exceptions. I will say some exceptions, like enough to make it unique enough, but when you really get down to brass tacks, this is kind of the same thing. So, okay. First things about this, we've got UFOs that are going around. Okay, interesting. UFOs that are going around causing panic, and we have our new villains, and we actually have the abductions of Sailor Mars, Sailor Mercury, and Sailor Jupiter. If you'll recall, in the last video, I said that, boy, I really wish I could get more of the other Sailor Scouts, because I like them, but they didn't really leave too much of an impact on the story, and there's not much I can really talk about them. And boy, oh boy, if there was little I could talk about them in the last one, there is absolutely nothing I can talk about them in this arc. The Sailor Scouts have no real purpose in this story, which is a shame. Even the ones that had more of a purpose last time have less of a purpose. In the first... Is it the first chapter, I think? In the first chapter, in chapter 15, when we started off this arc, Sailor Mars is abducted, and then they start to figure out, it's this thing, and then because of that, Sailor Mercury is abducted, and then they try to figure out again, and Sailor Jupiter is abducted, and they are gone for a good number of chapters, actually. So, yeah. And that's really all I can say about them, because otherwise they really don't serve too much of a purpose to this story, which is very unfortunate. Now, here's the good news. You guys know last time around I was already talking about some comparisons to the anime, which by that point I think I had only watched about 3 episodes. I've watched some more, not a ton. I think I'm maybe on episode 16 or 17. I can't just sit down and binge these, unfortunately, so I'm trying to watch them like about one a day. So I'm not too much farther along in the first season, but I will say I'm loving the anime just because it's giving more of the Sailor Scouts, you know? And it's also making Tuxedo Mask a bit more useful, but that's beside the point. So yeah, there's really not a ton I can really say about the Sailor Scouts in this one, because for the most part they're kind of gone, you know? And it's really unfortunate, not just because, you know, like, it's not just because, you know, one of them is Sailor Mercury, and you know from the last episode that Sailor Mercury is my favorite of them. She is definitely best girl, and as I keep watching the anime, that just keeps getting more and more true. But I did honestly like the other sailors, and they are really just gone. Now, each chapter, the first 3 chapters, I think, they all give, you know, they basically dedicate those chapters to the specific sailor that gets kidnapped. And it is kind of interesting. Like, there's this rival fortune teller at Ray's school, But then she ends up just getting kidnapped. But she does kill the bad guy in that one, which was interesting. And then pretty much the same thing happens with Sailor Mercury. Like, she fights some water person, and then she gets kidnapped. And then Sailor Jupiter, like, I think with Jupiter there was like a what was going on? There was like a specific thing where, like, there was like a virus or something that was going around, which was kind of interesting. But then she got kidnapped too. She did have kind of the best fight, Sailor Jupiter, when she fought Peds with a Z. But still, she's gone, and that's it. They're saved later, but that's about all I can talk about them. So, again, the UFOs were also interesting. The mystery around the Black Moon at the beginning was very, very interesting, but at the same time, like, the villains... Okay, they kept cutting back to, like, the news, and, like, and they would show, like, oh, here's the villains, and they're on, like, this talk show, and they're saying this clearly weird stuff that's going on the news, and it's like, okay, what news channel is actually letting these weird people talk, you know? But it worked, and then sailors got kidnapped. Yeah. And that's... I mean, we'll get more about the plot as we talk about more of the characters. The next thing to talk about, our first character that we're going to talk about, is Chibi-Usa, who was actually very interesting. So, you know, at the end of last video, at the end of the last arc, we had Chibi-Usa, you know, crash in out of nowhere and hold a gun to Usagi, demanding the mystical silver crystal. And that was a crazy, crazy cliffhanger. So it turns out she's not a clone. She's actually their daughter from the future, Usagi and Mamoru. It's their daughter from the future, which is actually pretty interesting, from the 30th century, actually. So I like that. However, one problem is that Chibiusa becomes the wedge between Usagi and Mamoru, and it's very dumb. Very, very dumb, actually, because basically Mamoru is spending all of his time and energy taking care of Chibiusa, and you know, he cares for her. And Usagi is getting jealous of it because, you know, she wants to spend time with her boyfriend. So she gets jealous of her own daughter, despite the fact that she should be caring for this girl as much as he is, because they are both her parents. And that's just really dumb. It's very, very dumb that it is, and it's also a bit of a wedge between Usagi and the rest of her family, because they do start paying attention to Chibiusa a bit more, but still, it's just very dumb, and it like keeps escalating, you know, until she, like, you know, until Usagi just, like, all out just, like, yells and is like, oh, you only care about her, and it's just very dumb, you know. There are some moments where, like, Mamoru is like, oh, well, like, he tries to cheer her up. It's like, oh, you know, I do care about you. And I don't know, they start getting in tune, if you know what I mean, in one of the chapters. But still, it's just stupid, because it's not like, okay, if this was like a random child, or even if it was like a clone of Usagi, that would make... I would be a bit more on board with it. It'd be like, oh, okay, well, come on, you know, like, you know, let's just move on from this. But at the same time, it's like, well, you kind of get it. But the fact that Usagi is getting jealous of her own daughter spending time with Mamoru is just stupid. And I don't really like it. The other stuff we can talk about with Chibiusa, she is apparently the useless princess who she was supposed to... Okay, so what they say is that people in the future are immortal, but you grow to when you're an adult, and then you stay that way for like 1,000 years. But Chibiusa only grew to be a child, and then she stayed that way. And she's like 900 years old, apparently. So she apparently hasn't awakened any of her powers or anything. And I guess after Usagi, like, you know, gripes at her enough, that's how she's driven to our main villain, Wise Man. And then she becomes Evil Usa. Evil Usa is also very dumb. First off, again, it's a retread of Evil Mamoru from the last arc. It's a complete retread of that. But now the thing is, some of it is like, okay, this isn't really what Chibiusa thinks. This is mainly Wise Man infecting her mind. But she also steals Mamoru, and he becomes her beloved Prince Endymion, and they kiss, and it's gross as all get out. And again, I want to chalk it up to, well, this is the, you know, it's because her mind is infected by wise men. But still, it got a little Oedipus is not good, and it's gross. It's gross as shit, you know? And then after that, like, what brings her back is the death of Sailor Pluto. And we'll get to Pluto in a second. Because I do want to talk about Sailor Pluto. But, yeah. And she like, comes around, and then she helps, and she becomes tiny Sailor Moon. And then that's just that. Chibiusa, like, I like the idea of Chibiusa, but I feel like in this arc she just wasn't handled very well. A lot like her father, actually. Ironically, she is a lot like her father. She does practically nothing in the way of being useful. She is central to the plot, and I want her to be better, hopefully, in the next arc. Actually, yeah, now that I put it like that, she is a lot like her father. Huh. Well, would you look at that? Oy. I didn't sip that right. So, that's Chibiusa. Let's move on to the newest sailor. Well, kind of. They kind of seem to imply she's been a sailor for, like, thousands upon thousands of years. Let's talk about Sailor Pluto. Awesome character, first of all. So, Sailor Pluto is this super tall, commanding, like, just interesting presence. She is the guardian of all time. According to King Endymion, apparently she is descended from the god Kronos, and she is the guardian of time in the underworld. And she has an attack called the Dead Scream, which sounds metal AF. Like, I'm serious, like, Sailor Pluto was awesome. Like, anytime she showed up, and I like, too, because, you know, she's like this stoic guardian that, you know, must always stay at her post and guard time, and, you know, she doesn't really, like, function like a normal person. She literally just stays there, just guards this door forever, you know? But I really like her relationship with Chibiusa, actually. I like her relationship with Chibiusa because Chibiusa, the whole thing is like, okay, well, she was, like, made fun of by a lot of kids, you know? It's like, oh, you can't be Neo Queen Serenity's daughter because you don't have any powers. You're useless and all that stuff. And so Chibiusa, like, has no one, and her parents are never really around to, like, comfort her. So one day she just, like, comes across Sailor Pluto, and Sailor Pluto is friendly to her, and they, like, become friends. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you know, here's this, you know, stoic ancient guardian, you know, this ancient, like, protector and stuff, and they make friends with, you know, the little kid, and I like that stuff, you know? So I really love Sailor Pluto's relationship with Chibiusa, you know? And I'm glad that that's what gets Evil Usa out of, or Black Lady, I guess I could actually say. It gets Black Lady out of her funk is with Sailor Pluto's death, which was also very crazy. So, you know, they have the whole, like, oh, here are the taboos that you cannot break, you know? And the last taboo is Sailor Pluto can never stop the flow of time. But she does, right when I'm going to say it's Prince Demande. I haven't gotten there yet in the anime, so I don't know how it's actually pronounced. Please excuse me, I'm just going to be saying Demande for the entire video. Anyway, but Prince Demande is about to, touch the two silver crystals together, which would cause a time paradox to happen. So Sailor Pluto stops time, the power of the world. She stops time, and then they go over and they separate the crystals. But at first I was like, okay, well, stopping time, what's the problem with that? It doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But the issue, I guess it's not even like an ethical issue, really. It's literally that if Sailor Pluto stops time, it kills her, Now, they don't explain why. Like, they don't explain, like, oh, it's because she has to use all her energy to do that, or if it literally is just she broke the rule and so her existence can no longer, occur, basically. She can no longer exist. They never explain it, but it is an interesting thing, because it's like, yeah, it's a nice power, you guys there, Sailor Pluto, but I guess it's just that it's too much of a good power, so... but yeah, when she did that was super crazy too, so... But then, because she does that, she ends up dying, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that's what breaks Black Lady out of her funk, So, yeah. So that's Sailor Pluto. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's talk about our good old boy Tuxedo Mask, Mamoru Chiba. Okay. He's a lot better in this arc. Now, is he that useful? Technically, no. However, he does do some things that are useful. First off, he found his purpose, taking care of Small Lady, otherwise known as Chibi-Usa. I did like that, actually, that he basically took on the responsibility of caring for Chibi-Usa. Like, when Chibi-Usa's not at Usagi's house, she's at Mamoru's apartment, and he's taking care of her. I do like that, actually, and I like because, he is her father, so he immediately takes on that responsibility. I really do like that. What I don't like is Usagi's response to that, but that's a whole other issue. I like that Tuxedo Mask took care of her. Also, he has an attack. He actually has an attack, so he keeps hearing this voice, and it's revealed later to be his future self, King Endymion. And basically, he's able to concentrate his energy into his hand, and he uses it for an attack. And I think he calls it, Tuxedo La Smoking Bomber, which is one of the dumbest names you could go with, but hey, he's on brand at least, and he has an attack, and he uses it, and yay, good job, Tuxedo Mask. Oh, I was so proud of him when he actually did something, So, that was really great. I like that. There was also another moment where he apparently, he was playing some sport and got injured, and then he basically used his aura to heal himself. So he does have some powers, which I think are a result from everything that happened last time. Which he didn't have those powers last time, but now he has them because of the events of the Dark Kingdom. So, yeah, I'm trying to, look and see. There was, something else. They explained that to Motoki, the arcade man, the guy that runs the arcade, who, by the way, is just in the loop now, which they say, oh, you guys are the sailors, and there's a command center under my arcade, and I was sitting there wait a minute, when did he get in the loop? I must have missed that somewhere, because he must have blended into the background at some point, and I just didn't know, but yeah, so they explained that Tuxedo Mask now has these powers. He's still not the most useful when it comes to combat. The most he'll do is, again, he has the one, Tuxedo La Smoking Bomber move, and I mean, that's about it. That's about all he can do. He's been getting a little bit better in the anime than I'm watching, which, again, I'm still not even, 20 episodes in, but he's been getting a little bit better with his fights in the anime, so I'm at least glad for that. But, I mean, the main thing about this is that he found... I feel like that he found his purpose with taking care of Chibiusa. Like, I really, really enjoyed that. The main problem of it, though, again, is Usagi. So, again, I mean, there's not much else I can really talk about with Usagi and Chibiusa. You know, it's like, okay, she's jealous, you know, she wants to spend time with him. However, I will say, like, later on, like, there are a number of times where she's like, no, I don't like this, I'm jealous. But it's wrong. I shouldn't be jealous of my own daughter. Like, there are a number of times where she, like, owns up. It's like, I am jealous. I shouldn't be. It's very stupid, but I am, you know? I also like, I think at one point Sailor Jupiter, this is after they save her, after they save the abducted sailors, they say, like, oh, well, the reason that Mamoru is spending so much time and energy taking care of Chibiusa is because it's all he can do. Like, they literally just say, that is all he can do. He can't fight like the rest of us. So he's making sure that Chibiusa is okay so we don't have to worry about her. And I like that. Again, it shows his purpose in this. Now, what they're going to do with him next arc, I have no idea, honestly. But he was a lot better in this one. So I'm glad for that. Again, I'm really glad for that because he specifically was a drag on last time, you know? But he got a lot better. Usagi, I mean, now that she's... I know I said this last time. It was like, oh, well, in the next arc, Usagi will get better because Tuxedo Mask will get better. Well, in this one, Tuxedo Mask got better, but Usagi still has different issues. So hopefully next time, Usagi will be a lot better. You know, now that everything is patched up between Usagi and Chibiusa, maybe now we're going to be good, but we'll have to see next time. So yeah, and then Chibiusa again, like, so Usagi and Chibiusa, I hope that they're better in the next arc, because them in this arc was not amazing, basically. So, let's talk villains. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, so, the henchmen are as boring as the ites were. Now, I'll be interested to see once I get to that in the anime, because I will say in the anime, they're doing a much better job with Jadeite and Nephrite and all them. Like, I am starting to remember them more. Even though they don't do a lot, but I remember a lot more now. It's like, okay, Nephrite's plan is specifically, you know, to get energy from a single person. Jadeite, you know, was kind of the screw up of the bunch, which is why he went first and stuff. Like, I'm remembering them a lot more. So hopefully these guys from the Black Moon are better in the anime. But for the most part, most of the henchmen are boring. Okay, the brother... Prince Demande's brother, am I crazy, or did he look exactly like Mamoru? And in fact, for a while I was actually confused. I thought he was Prince Demande, but then it was like, oh no, he's his brother Sapphire. But I was looking at him, I was like, okay, there's got to be something with this guy. Like, they don't make him look like Mamoru without a specific reason. But they did. The author did. Like, there was no reason for that, but I swear, like, I'll put both of them on screen now. Like, I feel like this is like that meme from The Office, like, corporate needs you to figure out, you know, they need you to figure out which of these two is which, you know, figure out the differences, and you look at it and it's like, these are the same thing, because I swear to God, the brother looks exactly like Mamoru, and it messed with me, because I was like, oh, okay, so there's got to be something with this guy, right? Because why else would he look exactly like him? But he didn't. Good news, we got more insubordination. However, again, these villains are way too copy and paste from the last time. So we got more insubordination between Demande and Sapphire, because Sapphire, I assume that's how you pronounce his name. It looked enough like Sapphire that that's what I'm calling him. Sapphire wanted to, like, you know, he wants to get away from wise men and all that stuff and help his brother, and he does some stuff. I can't remember specific stuff, but he does some stuff that's a little bit insubordinate. But then Prince Demande will actually go in later, and he starts to become the insubordinate, and I really did like that, actually. down to, when the 2 mystical silver crystals are there, he takes both of them, and he's ready to blow up all of space and time, take everyone down with him just because he doesn't want Wiseman to win, So I really like that. Actually, Prince Demande was the most interesting of the villains here. And that brings us to Wiseman, also known as Death Phantom, also known as the planet Nemesis, who is all the generic evilness of Queen Metallica. However, none of the even slightly interesting backstory. Because Queen Metallica, at the very least, they say, oh, she's this great evil that, was born from a dark spot on the sun or something. Nemesis, Death Phantom. So apparently in the future, there were no problems anymore. Peace had been achieved on Earth. But there was this one guy who didn't like it, and then, he did, I don't even remember what he did, but he was sentenced to exile on the planet Nemesis, the mystical 10th planet. Okay, so they shot this guy at a planet, and he was just alone there on that planet. And that's how he gathered his henchmen with Prince Demande and everything from the Black Moon. Their whole thing of there shouldn't be peace, there should be war. This peace is stupid, and it's okay, that's just dumb. They're some weird anarchists, basically. I don't know. Their motivation was dumb, but I still like Prince Demande. But yeah, so this guy, Death Phantom, had apparently just been soaking up the unstable energy of the planet Nemesis, and then took over, shot the beguiling black crystal at the Earth, killed a bunch of people, and put Neo Queen Serenity to sleep. And that was that. And then they just go, and then they defeat him later. He honestly was way more boring than Queen Metallica ever was. And unfortunately, as much as I did like Prince Demande, he wasn't nearly as good as Queen Beryl was. So the villains, like I said, last time I had problems with the Ites, but Queen Beryl and Queen Metallica were pretty interesting. This time the villains are really just, they were not that great in this one. Let's talk about the future. First off, we have Crystal Tokyo and King Endymion. So that was interesting when they actually realized, we have to go to the future, we have to go to the 30th century. And it wasn't this is a future incarnation of Usagi and Mamoru. It's no, this is them in the future, which was really interesting. And we got the sleeping future Neo Queen Serenity Esquire. They kept giving her more and more. It was Neo Queen Serenity, who was Usagi, and then they kept saying so you must be the future Neo Queen Serenity, Usagi. And then someone says it was, what was it? Neo Queen Serenity 2B. To call her Queen Serenity, for God's sake, It was just a little too much, But she's been asleep after being nuked by the beguiling black crystal, which I was immediately tired of them saying the beguiling black crystal. So she was just out for a while, and because apparently once she became the queen, Usagi basically lost all of her powers and could not become Sailor Moon. What a bummer. What a downgrade. That blows. She literally says, I can't fight anymore now that I'm queen. The hell? Which is why they had to go back in time and get Sailor Moon and the other sailors to help, because Queen Serenity can't do anything. Because for some reason, once she becomes the queen, Usagi just becomes useless. And for God's sake, she doesn't, say what you will about whatever Usagi does in a fight. She still fights, she can still do stuff, she still defeats the bad guys and all that stuff. They literally have to go back in time and get her because future Usagi sucks. What? Why? Why would you do that? Anyway, the only other thing about the future is that there's some confusing rules about time travel. They want to say we're going to go back in time and change things so that, this peaceful world is never created. They want to destroy the mystical silver crystal. I don't know. There was more. What was it all? It was like, it was just so strange. It's like, okay, well, if that did happen, then they should remember it. Like, the weird thing is, none of them seem to realize the rules of time travel. Like, well, okay, if that didn't happen, like, you can go into all things of like, oh, well, if you go back and this didn't happen, but that doesn't spur you on to go back and change it, so that shouldn't work. Also, Serenity and Endymion don't remember any of this stuff that happened. Like, it's so strange. Like, Endymion, like, he helps Mamoru start using his powers, and he says, oh, I didn't think I would have to meet you so soon. It's like, do you not remember this? Do you not remember going through this 1,000 years ago, you useless bastard? Like, what are you doing? Come on, remember this stuff. You know? So there's that, and there's also, at the ending, Usagi wants to talk to Neo Queen Serenity, but they say, like, oh, it's dangerous to have the two of the same person in the same place. But then they go and talk, and it's like, oh, I really want to talk to her, and Serenity's like, oh, I know I really want to talk to Sailor Moon, but I can't. And it's like, well, you don't have to. You are her. She is you. Like, when Usagi's like, oh, well, I really wanted to talk to Neo Queen Serenity, it's like, well, you're going to get there the long way around. That literally is the future version of you, you know? So I don't know. The whole time travel thing was a bit much, but it still works. It's still good. The slight mention of the ending, not really the same, not really a good cliffhanger like last time, but they say goodbye to Chibiusa as she goes back to the 30th century, but then she comes right back because Queen Serenity wants them to train Chibiusa to use her sailor powers, so we're going to keep her around. And that is basically the arc. Overall, it's okay. Good things, again, Sailor Pluto was amazing. Sailor Pluto is probably my favorite thing of this arc. Tuxedo Mask became useful. But overall, I think I preferred the Dark Kingdom arc. It doesn't help that this was such a repeat of the Dark Kingdom arcs. Like, okay, here's these henchmen that you have to defeat, and then you fight the whoever the leader of them, but then there's also this evil force, and then there's this character who's central to the plot, but they don't really do anything, and it's a drag on Usagi's character. It's like all of that of the Dark Kingdom arc, minus like the really great stuff in the first arc, which was the other Sailor Scouts. Like, I mean, yeah, Venus is still here. Have you noticed I haven't mentioned Venus at all yet? I haven't mentioned Mina, Sailor Venus. That's because, and I am not kidding, she did absolutely nothing in that entire arc. She doesn't even get kidnapped. Sailor Venus does nothing. She stands there, and there are times where she's literally told to stay there while, Tuxedo Mask and King Endymion go off and do something. It's like, no, Venus, you stay here. We'll go do this. Like, take her with you. She's a sailor. You two are the useless boys, you know? I don't care what sort of tuxedo bomber attacks you have. Take the sailor with you. So yeah, pretty much all the sailors are given absolutely nothing to do in this one, whereas they did do stuff in the last arc. So I think overall, the Dark Kingdom arc was much better than this. This was a retread. And again, it did some good stuff. It made Mamoru Chiba useful, which is incredible. I did like Chibi-Usa. Like, her backstory was kind of interesting, and it made sense how she was driven to Wiseman. But once she became Black Lady, that's just sort of where it's like, okay, again, this is like when Mamoru became evil in the last arc, so whatever. But the other stuff around that and her relationship with Sailor Pluto were very interesting. Sailor Pluto was amazing. She rocked, honestly. Like, not only is she this incredible, like, badass, like, stoic guardian of time who's descended from the gods. She has these super cool attacks like the dead scream, and she can stop time, you know? It's like, Sailor Pluto was awesome. Everything else, it's not bad, but it's not great either, you know? So, again, here's hoping for the next arc. Here's hoping for the next arc. I really am hoping. I'm going through my non-concise notes to see if there's anything else I want to mention. At some point I wrote, not sure what's up with these pipes, but Ami is swimming. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing Ami swimming. That sounds way worse than I meant that to. Oh yeah, Sailor Moon has this new power called Moon Princess Halation. For a long time, I wrote it's as useless as Mamoru is. Because, yeah, like, the first, 5 times she uses it, it just does nothing. But then it did something. So, yay. At one point I wrote down, these peasants are way too knowledgeable about the silver crystal. Oh, yeah. Because that's in, I guess, Chibiusa is going to school in Crystal Tokyo. Which, the story is that not 4 years from now, but at the age of 22, Usagi becomes Neo Queen Serenity and basically takes over the world. She just did that. Great. I don't know how Usagi Tsukino did that, but she did. But there's these kids that are making fun of Chibiusa, the crown princess, and they're like, oh, well, you can't really be the daughter of Neo Queen Serenity because you can't use the mystical silver crystal. And so I just wrote, these peasants are way too knowledgeable about the silver crystal. That's probably not a good thing to say, but I was like, these kids know a little too much, you know? Oh yeah, there was one point where they said Neo Queen Serenity to be, and then 2 panels later, Neo Queen Serenity in the making. Just stop it. Chibiusa became Sailor Alabama. Well, she just wanted to be cousins with her dad. There's a bit of the Deke dub for you. A joke about that. There is a point where they go for round 2 on who's your favorite character. So I just wrote down, did I fucking stutter last time? We're really just cutting through a bunch of stuff, aren't we? That's it. That was it. That's basically everything I can talk about. So overall, the Black Moon arc. Kind of just a copy. Again, some interesting stuff in there too, but honestly, really just more of the same of the Dark Kingdom arc. Here's hoping that the next arc will improve on things. Again, like I said last time, it's okay, I'm assuming that Mamoru is going to be a bit better once... he's going to be a bit better in the next arc, and I was right. So hopefully, in the next arc, in arc number 3, which is the Infinity arc, hopefully Chibiusa will be a bit better, I'm hoping. I'm really hoping, guys, because this did not leave me with the highest hopes. The Black Moon arc is okay. So, come back in 2 weeks and we will be going over chapters 27 through 38, which is the Infinity arc. However, come back next week as well, because guess what? The Sailor Moon anime had 3 movies, and I'm going to react to them. So, join me back next Saturday, where we will watch Sailor Moon R the movie. It is going to be the Viz dub, and it's going to be pretty much like a normal reaction. I'm going to watch it, then take my notes, and we'll discuss it right after I watch it. So come back next week for us to watch the Sailor Moon R movie, which I believe, because Sailor Moon R is an adaptation of the Black Moon arc, and also I'm presuming a bunch of filler too, like with the Dark Kingdom arc of Season 1. So Sailor Moon R, the movie, I think will take place sometime in that. So, yeah. And then, again, 2 weeks from today, when this goes up, we will be covering the Infinity arc of the Sailor Moon manga. So, yeah. That's basically it. Again, really hoping, I'm hoping we get better villains and more of the Sailor Scouts. Because somehow we got less of the Sailor Scouts in this arc, and it's a shame, because I really, really like all the characters, you know? I really like all the characters, all of our heroes, and I want more of them. And thank God I've got the anime for that too, because I'm really enjoying the anime, and it's really, I'm just loving the slice of life episodes with all the characters, you know? So, yeah. So that is basically it for the Black Moon arc. I'm sorry if this was a bit of a shorter review, actually. Well, probably not too much shorter than we're used to, but yeah. Here's hoping for the next arc, as well as Sailor Moon R, the movie. So, with all that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time, once again, for Sailor Moon R, the movie. See you guys there. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of my Sailor Moon videos, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit the notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.